Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the HVAC Grapevine Show. I'm your host, Chris Hughes. My co-host to the right, Eric Kaiser. My other co-host right here, Michael Cianfrocco. This is the show where, I don't know, we talk HVAC.
We're just hanging out.
We're just hanging out.
I mean, we talk all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So let's talk about what happened this week. I was at the International Builders Show. Seen some pretty cool stuff, and I'd like to talk about it.
Nice.
So,
that's cool the IBS, right?
IBS.
It's
so
the
we
other
do have
IBS.
some guests. We have some guests, and we're going to get to that. But I just want to get this out the way and get y'all's feedback on it. So,
what you got?
Give me a minute. I want to hear what y'all's thoughts is on this.
Oh no! Here we go. Is he pulling up pictures again?
Yeah.
Give me a slideshow with the kids. Let's see.
Oh, jeez.
All right, here we go. Give me a minute. Let's see. Present. There we go.
Oh, we got Bill in the chat. What's up, Bill?
Nice.
All right, so this here I seen at the show, and at first glance I was like, "Oh, that's neat." Then I started really like thinking about it. Right, this is a booster fan for a dryer, right? And I was talking to the guy who was kind of, heading up the booth and talking about it. And I was like, it's kind of neat. I was like, so tell me about it. So basically, you got the booster fan, you install it. I'm assuming this is where you have you got your dryer, you got a vertical mount, you got a long run going up and out the house. And the pitch was like, hey, you got the whole equivalent length thing. And I'm like, yeah, but we have codes for that. Right, like the code state, you have like 25 feet, and an elbow is 5 feet, a 45 is 2.5 feet, and that can go to 25 feet. And I want to say, I could be wrong about this, but I thought they upped it to 35 feet. But somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Did it go to 35 feet, or are we still at 25 feet of equivalent length on dryers? Not sure. But anyway, so I was thinking about this.
Let me get my code book.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this, and I was like, okay, I kind of like it, right? Because, I like the fact that there's an extra screen. And so, you're trapping more lint right close to the dryer, like it's being double screened. So I dig that. But the question I have is, if you have a booster fan, and is there a chance that the booster fan could be moving more air than the dryer needs to move? And would that cause an issue of running like a lower temperature on your dryer because you're sucking more air through the dryer than you want to suck? Basically, it'd be like if you have a furnace and the furnace is running a really low split. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Could that be an effect of the booster fan?
Can you put a true flow grid on a dryer?
Let me ask.
There you go, done.
A round plate, right? Let me ask you this though.
Next question.
Have you ever seen a booster fan put on a branch run of an HVAC system?
Yes.
How much airflow does that really increase things?
It's funny you ask. I tested that at headquarters, and it can actually move a lot more air.
It can.
Believe it or not, it can. Yeah, it does boost.
I hear. But it depends coming up here.
No. I was me and Ed Jonawak and Steve Rogers tested the booster fan, and I have the raw footage. I guess I need to put it out to the world.
Yeah,
but
what the heck?
So we had this one generic fan, and I want to say I don't remember the test super perfectly because it's been months ago. But we tested it with different back pressures and things like that, and it would actually solidly move like 160 CFM if I remember.
Yeah, That was like a year ago when you had Ed there, right?
But
Yeah.
that's only if you're feeding it with a decent amount of air, right? If it's
That's the
choking
part I
it-
don't remember. I no.
Oh, and the
No, I don't
answer
think
to
so.
that, Chris, is 35 feet of equivalent length.
Okay. I thought they upped it to 35. It used to be 25.
Says
And I thought they had
says
made the change to
Google.
35. So my question
Google.
is,
Oh, now we're getting
Yeah.
code
Says
answers. Google.
says Wikipedia.
so like, do you think there's a need for the booster fan?
Oh, ICC. I got an ICC. International Cold Council.
Yeah, I would say in certain situations there might be. I've seen some that are like way longer than that because of the way the house was built. In fact, I've
Yep.
cleaned. I cleaned a couple of them way back in my appliance servicing days.
So here's
Nice.
the question I have to ask, because this is the one I wish I would have asked at the booth and I didn't. If you put in this booster fan, does
Right.
that mean you get to exceed code? Does code allow the booster fan to exceed 35 feet? That's
I
what
don't
I'd
know.
like to know.
But
Because
I
that
want to
would be
know.
a game changer.
I want to know how often the homeowner's going to change that or clean that filter out.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
from being an appliance service person, sometimes
dude.
it's hard to get them to clean out the lint trap on the
Yeah,
dryer.
the regular one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know.
So-
Just something I seen at the show. It piqued my interest. And here's what I would say. Interestingly enough, I was hanging out at the construction performance zone, which is where some of the builders, if you follow any of the builders out there, some of the most prominent ones were at the construction performance zone at the show. And they were talking a lot about ERVs. ERVs was a hot topic at the build
Really?
show this year. Yeah. And that kind of caught me off guard because I was kind of like, whoa. I'm like, what are all these builders talking about ERVs? Like, I did not expect that. But
No
it was
kidding.
not
It's-
only
Because it's
It
in
was
a lot
not-
of it's becoming into a lot of the codes now.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
really?
they're having
Yeah.
to put them in.
fresh
Yeah.
air was a hot topic, ERVs was a hot topic, and
That's
dehumidifiers was a hot topic. And I'm not talking about just in the performance construction zone. I'm talking
Like everywhere.
yeah. Now, maybe not every single booth, because there's some people there who were pitching like tools and stuff that had nothing to do with it. But yeah, I don't know. I found it really interesting that it was all over the place.
I put a CO2 sensor in my brother's house, man. It spiked up to like almost 2,000 ppm. We were just talking about an EV for his house. That's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy you mentioned that.
It is interesting. Builders are paying attention, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Which I dig that.
That's cool.
All right, so
The Irritable Bowel Council, IBS.
I will say I found some really cool guests that are going to be coming on the show that I met at the IBS show. So stay tuned.
Eric's really fond of one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
All right.
excited to have more guests. More guests are always cool.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So,
Eric, take us into tonight's show. What are we doing?
whoa, what tonight's show? All right, well, for our guest tonight, we've got some really cool guests coming on. I mean, I think they're all really cool, but we're going to talk a little bit, maybe non-technical tonight. You know, we might get into some technical stuff. You never know. But we've got 3 guests tonight, and they're all women, and this is kind of a continuing conversation that has been going on for a while now in the trade, and it's very interesting to me because I have learned so much about this topic from talking to women, especially about how things we say get lost in translation and are maybe misunderstood or understood differently by different people. And I'm going to let some of these people tell you their stories, which I find really fascinating to learn about. So let's bring on our guests here, Chris.
All righty.
Who we
Bring
got?
them
Who we
on
got
down.
first?
Up first, we have Jessica Egan.
Hey guys.
Nice. If you don't know Jessica, she works for Kalos in Florida. Introduce
Yeah.
yourself here a little bit, Jessica.
Yeah, I work with Bert.
Bird
Bird on a shirt.
Bird on a shirt, co-worker.
All right. Second up, Rachel Kaiser, who I love bringing on this show, by the way. I am a fan of Rachel.
What's going on, boss?
I'm excited to be here, and I think it's going to be a great conversation that we have tonight.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. And
I thought you guys were going to be on the same screen because we were running out of squares.
Oh, I was told no. I had to have my own square.
yeah, we got one more guest, guys, and we're bringing
right.
on Jennifer.
Last but not least,
Hey, what's up?
All right, Jennifer. For those who are watching who may not know what you do, tell them everything you're involved in. But remember, we only have 1
15
hour.
minutes.
I'll just do the highlights reel. How about that?
There you go.
Sports highlights. Okay, so I'm Jennifer Manzo. I own a heating and air company in Maine, and I own HVAC Coalition, which is a free training coalition and resource location coalition that started out for women but is now for everybody. And that comes also with a free tech support line 24/7. And I'm a board member of Here and There and Everywhere and a bunch of other stuff. For now, we'll leave it at that because I'm tired.
Nice. Yeah.
is that resume stretching onto 3 or 4 pages yet?
It doesn't even exist anymore. I don't even bother. Hey, Ty.
Mr. Banana Man.
All right. So who's taking us into the round 1? This is going to be a heavy show. So I'm curious. I feel like I just need to sit back and just soak it in.
Who's going to ring the bell?
Well,
Yeah.
I think
I'll
it's kind of
start.
nice.
I will
because
start
of
this.
last night's events. So
Well, that was kind of timely.
yeah. it was weird.
HVACR squares, no Hollywood here. I like that.
That's funny, right? You forgot
So, I
the
mean-
Misfits too, though. I wanted to throw
Oh,
in there.
yeah,
Sorry,
that-
sorry, Eric.
I do that.
Oh,
Sorry.
that is right. What is that now? The Misfits.
Misfits of HVAC podcast on Saturday nights
Nice.
with Mr. Ryan Hughes.
Nice.
The
Yeah.
Hughesman.
I caught a piece of it. I got a piece of it last night.
It was a fun episode.
Nice. So I will say each one of these ladies has taught me different things kind of about this subject through various conversations and getting to hang out with them. Obviously, I get to hang out with one of them a lot more than the other two, but
Hope so.
little once in a while anyhow. But getting into some really in-depth conversations about like how things are perceived, and I think this goes even way beyond talking between men and women. Women in HVAC became a really big topic this year at the training symposium in Florida. You all had a great panel. I know Rachel and Jennifer were on that. Of course, Jessica was there. That was a really, really impressive panel to sit there and listen to some of the things. And of course, I've obviously got to hear a lot more of Rachel's stories too. We've got into some super in-depth conversations, and starting really kicked off a couple years ago for me. When I started learning more about some of the things that she's had to go through, and then beyond that, other women have had to go through coming into areas that are predominantly male dominated, and it surprised me a lot, because I really thought that we had come a lot farther both as a society and as a trade than what I realized and what I started learning. And so I kind of wanted to have this conversation and just keep this ball rolling, because I think the industry's ripe to have this conversation. And I think it's a good conversation to have. Now, I'm going to ask that people keep an open mind when you listen to this stuff, because we don't learn anything unless we have an open mind and we listen to things, we really dig into things, and we think about them in ways, and we're willing to learn. It's kind of like learning anything new, right? We got to realize maybe there's something out there we don't know, we don't realize, and we don't see everything else that goes on behind the scenes. So who wants to kind of kick things off here? What I'd like to talk about is maybe some of the experiences that you've had, positive and or negative, and lessons you've learned and lessons you can share with other people. And I've got some stuff that I'd like to share as we go through as well, and really highlight. Jessica, you want to kick this off? You look like you're itching over there to go.
Yeah, I I am really, really torn on this conversation. I am so proud to be a woman doing this job. But at the same time, is this conversation dividing us even more because we're so focused on differences and not similarities that I'm so torn on this one. So it's a really hard one for me.
It's really tough to do.
That's
this.
an interesting perspective.
Really.
Yeah.
I kind of understand what you're saying. Yeah.
I will add to what Jessica said, and this is probably a very closed-minded view. So first thing I want to say is, if you're out there, and to the ladies on the panel, don't hate me for what I'm about to say. Just realize, because look, this is like barbershop talk, right? That's what we're doing here. And like, I get, who I am and what I look like in real life, right? So I get it. But like, I think about what Jessica said, and I kind of somewhat agree to her. And I don't know if that's the right approach, but like, the more we bring it up, are we blowing it up? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is that the right thing, or should it just be like maybe shouldn't be diving that deep and let it go? That way, it becomes the new normal. And I don't know.
So we don't
I have
know
no
either.
idea.
Yeah.
We don't know either because this hasn't happened before, right? Like, I mean, the last time that something like this happened was during the suffrage, and like women were like throwing Molotov cocktails through houses. I mean, like, we're not on that level at this point. So we're just trying to navigate it too, because it's like Jessica said, we don't want to make everything hemorrhage women in HVAC either. You know what I mean? We want to be on an equal level, and we don't even know how thin that line is or where that line stops. All we know is that if men still don't know how to communicate with us, we're more than willing to help. And that's why I'm here. And I think that's why Rachel and Jess are here too.
And vodka's too expensive for Molotov cocktails right
now. True.
Yeah, that's why you go with
like
methanol.
American vodka.
No, you just use methanol.
Right. We have a Rachel.
Right. That's right. We got a Rachel.
None of the stuff you can drink safely.
And you can't use pop-off vodka because that's a plastic bottle. Let's get smart, guys.
True.
And gals.
But
yeah, we
guys and gals.
We could talk about HVAC slime all day, right, Jessica?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just as the slime lady.
We could fill up like 2 hours with that.
Love it. So many pictures.
I'm going to say that I think there are certain aspects of this conversation worth having, and that comes from someone who didn't think that there was a lot of conversation even to have. And I didn't think that I thought that the world had maybe moved on beyond a lot of things. And then I started asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I hit that point where I realized there was a ton of stuff that goes on that I didn't see that I was doing in everyday life. And now that I start seeing that, I start looking around and I see other men around me doing this in everyday life. And one of the terms that, and I'm kind of torn on the term, but it's called a microaggression, right? And it's little tiny things. And the way I consider it is it's kind of like sandpaper, or it's kind of like water wearing away over time that's just constantly running at something, but it wears whatever it's running against down over a long period of time. And I know this might seem like splitting hairs to somebody, but I'm a technical person, and sometimes I like to get down in the weeds, and I think we all do in some things. And sometimes we got to dig down in the weeds to figure out we don't need to go there.
Yeah.
And sometimes we got to dig down in the weeds to find out, hey, there's a whole other world down here that we can explore. So to the point, we've not had this conversation in a lot of ways. But I've learned a lot from having some of these conversations with people and learning little things. And it's even translated back, I think, to me seeing relationships and teaching in a whole new light, and sharing things and communicating with everybody in a completely different way. It's fundamentally changed how I look at things in my life. So, when I started this, I started asking questions. I started going to friends that I know that are women, friends that Rachel's that are women, and saying, hey, here's what I'd like to learn. Talk to me about this. And the hole got deep, is what I can say. It got super deep and super wide for me. And it did. It was going down in those weeds, and I found a whole new world that I didn't realize was there.
I will say, Eric, that I've never been asked in the way that Eric asks, and it's taught me a lot. It's taught me how to have that conversation, because like nobody ever cared before, A, and B, anybody asking me how I felt was usually a woman. So like having someone like Eric be like, hey, this made me feel this type of way. How did it make you feel? Is it just me, or like is this a real thing? And me being like, you know what? Yeah, but I just never would have said that out loud until you asked me. I think whatever it is we're doing here, it's important. I'm just not sure where it fits. So, oh well, right? We'll just figure it out as we
go. Well, I kind of equate this conversation to the way we talk to customers every day.
Very true.
Right? Sometimes we don't get down in the weeds with customers, but sometimes we have to figure out how to explain things to customers, and there's certain things we do and don't say to customers.
Yeah.
Hey there, little lady.
There's certain ways that you don't walk in and just tell somebody, hey, your system's a piece of shit, you should just get it replaced.
Oh, depends on what company you're working for, bro. Come on,
dude. It depends on the system. Like,
well, I mean,
I've seen some systems that could totally get that language.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
the
by
point
and large,
is, when do we say it and when do we not?
Yeah.
And what do we say?
Right. It just comes down to respect at the end of the day, in my opinion. Yeah. We got to treat each other with respect and dignity. And sometimes as society, we forget that,
I want to hear from Rachel. Rachel,
I mean,
you're
I
being
think
quiet over there.
Well, that's also a lot of things to get to listen and learn in with this discussion tonight. But I mean, for me, yes, I agree with Jessica I wish we weren't having to have this conversation. Absolutely. But my challenge, given the sort of straddling between industries that I personally do, is I've seen the attempt at remaining silent and watching it change decade after decade in another industry not work. And so to me, what that says is we need to try something different, and we need to do it in a way that is not combative, but is educational. So if we're taking an approach that is trying to help both ourselves and others learn more, then that's a new path that we can try out to make inroads at where we don't have to have these types of conversations any longer, because it's not just about the gender, it's not just about whatever degree of difference it is that we want to highlight, because every one of those journeys for that group trying to get into a variety of industries, whether it's HVAC, other trades, other white collar, it doesn't matter. Everyone has these different groups in which they are trying to make inroads from what the majority has been. And I think that gives us such a great opportunity to have these conversations. Yes, right now we're focused in talking with a group of women, but that only helps us to learn how do we make it better for everyone.
Yeah.
So if we approach it like that, we're just leveraging a group that gives a lot of opportunity to address things like, hey, there's a shortage of technicians. How can we start looking at ways to change that problem? Well, there's a group of workers available that may actually have interest in filling that. How about we explore that? And so to me, this is a springboard to get us into other problem solvings it's just the group that right now we happen to be talking to, but you could, talk to any other group that's trying to make their way into one of these fields.
Yeah, we can't find technicians that want to do all this technical stuff. So train in house, and that's a great opportunity.
Right.
Yeah. And to get those people in here, though, sometimes we have to change mindsets about who can do a job.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're starting at the very bottom right now.
Right. We've got to start at the very beginning. And Rachel and I did a presentation at AHR a couple years ago on this subject of, we called it troubleshooting women in HVACR, which
No.
Right.
We called it a catalyst for change.
Well, it was troubleshooting.
You did, Rachel.
It was actually both in the title, if I'm recalling right. Be a catalyst for change, I think. But it was troubleshooting women in HVACR, because I'm like, hey, let's make it a technical talk. And we kind of did. And where we went with this, it really, we went in a direction that I did not expect. And again, I learned something from sitting down and running through a troubleshooting process. Why don't we have more women in HVAC is the question that I've heard asked numerous times. Where are all the women?
Yeah.
And I had to think back to the offerings that we give to different people in schools. And I thought back, and Rachel and I talked through this, and it was like, well, wait a minute. When are people deciding on a career path? When
Junior in high school.
Junior in high school? I mean, I know people that started deciding a career path when they're in grade school and middle school.
Absolutely, yeah.
Can you talk to my son, Eric, please?
I've got a question for the women here, because this is something I don't understand. Like, when I was growing up in my high school, I generally knew which guys were going to go to the trades and which guys were definitely going to go to college, and which guys were going to go to college and drop out. Right? Like, you could point them out. But I never thought to look at the women and say, who's going to go to college and who's going to go to the trades, right? But I imagine y'all probably have a pretty good feel of the ratio of what's happening there, right? No? Like, I'm curious, how many women do you think in high school are college bound and
so we talked about this on the panel. We did talk about this on the panel, and I was astounded that I thought it was because I'm a little girl from Maine. I thought like we just don't have what everybody else has, but that was not the case. All the women on that stage had not been offered a spot in the trades when we were in high school. Nobody said that was an option. Yeah. I mean, I even had a vocational school where we went to vocational school, all of us together, and it was attached to my high school, and there were all these trades, and then there was like nursing and early childhood development and banking. And they didn't even give us like electricity and carpentry and automotive as an option. That was the boys' options, and these were our options. So I graduated as a Tech 4 in early childhood because I had 3 choices. I mean, we're not offered that whatsoever, not in any way.
And I just watched the symposium that you guys were at. I was a little late to that show. It was late for the, we were talking a little too much the night before, but Dustin Cole kept me up.
Talking.
Yeah, we're talking. Little
Dustin Cole kept me up.
Coffee talk, But I really enjoyed it, and I'm sorry I missed you guys. I missed you guys there. I showed up late, and it was really good. And you guys were talking about that starting schooling early, middle school. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And my son's in, was he in 10th grade? And I'm like, yeah, if I would have just kind of like pushed it a little bit more. And I try to bring it up at dinner, like, hey, what do you want to do? When he was in middle school.
All of my high schoolers are in the trades. All 4 of them.
Nice. Nice.
It takes a little push, but most kids belong there. If you really think about it, like the ratio to how many kids belong in college as opposed to how many belong in the trades or in industrial work is astronomical. And it's not the way that the government and society thinks. It's the opposite.
Yeah. And we got aerospace close to us, and we got so I was like, do you want to do that? And then you can go to college or hang out with me all day. Well, maybe I get them Maybe that's why he doesn't want to do it. But I get you at the local HVAC company. And it's funny because I asked my daughter, she's 7. I was like, "Come on, you want to work with Daddy?" No, I want to be an artist.
All 7-year-olds want to be artists.
And she wants to stay home. She just wants to stay with us for the rest of her life. I was like, well, I don't know about that, but you could be an artist.
I mean, in the STEM
starving
side.
artist.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
In the STEM area, we have to try to get people in general, just anyone interested in STEM fields. We go all the way to kindergarten.
Oh,
That's
cool.
beautiful.
Real
That
quick,
is beautiful.
define what STEM is. Just
Science, technology, engineering, and math, which is HVACR in my
Cool.
opinion.
Yeah, I do
they're-
KiwiCo with the kids. Kiwi, you guys familiar with that?
KiwiCo is awesome. They have a whole STEM section on TikTok now as well for those of you looking for STEM activities for your kids.
And I
If you
did
click the STEM
not
button,
know
that's
it was
all
STEM.
is. Yeah, it is.
It's STEAM
Engineering.
if you add art.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's really cool. Hands-on, I love it.
if you think about HVAC ductwork, sometimes it's art.
That's right. So you just STEAM,
Any
of the new STEAM initiatives. So there'll be a lot of communities available, and that to me is one of the learning spaces that HVACR has that they could leverage, is looking at STEM or STEAM curricula or any of the initiatives that are happening in those spaces, because it is an industry that is in those fundamentals. Use those as a jumping off point as well, and being able to latch onto those to help open the eyes of younger kids across the board that the trade is an available option for them to consider as they're growing up.
Yeah, I think this is really important to get the
Absolutely.
kids started early. I really do.
Yeah. And now that we don't live in a society that says, oh, if you're in the trades, you're like a nobody and you're not going to make any money and all that, like that's changed a lot. So now we
Heck
can
yeah.
approach it as the trades are sexy and it's good money and come on, like.
So I go back to looking at like little kids' toys.
Yeah.
You know, the kids that a lot of parents now. We don't have kids, so but I look at the toys that normally get bought for the boys versus normally get bought for the girls. What is that steer
Trucks.
them towards? What is that first thing that they're introduced to?
Nerf guns. Oh, I thought you were asking me
Nerf guns are
directly.
for everyone.
Everybody
Oh,
gets Nerf guns.
I'm pretty sure Nerf guns for all kids is kind of how it happens at the house, you know.
But usually it's cars and dolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, cars and dolls, right.
I got
Are you
pots
going
and
to
pans
be
over
a caretaker or a truck driver?
I don't know. I had Darth Vader.
That's amazing.
That's
I
awesome.
had a lot of
Yeah.
Star Wars too. As a Star Wars kid
Of
too.
course, my Darth Vader lived in a very nice dollhouse, but
I love that. My 10-year-old now, she was obsessed with Batman. So instead of like Barbies, we bought her the dream house and then bought her a bunch of like Batman and like
That's
Robin
funny.
figurines.
Yeah, it was He-Man and Barbie would always have a wedding.
Yep.
Yep.
He-Man was when I was a kid.
The 80s,
So-
the 80s.
I'll tell you something that I get aggravated about, and this used to happen a lot back when I was at the family business. Like, we had a lady who was a bookkeeper, and I'm talking this lady was dynamite, right? She could handle up way better than me, right? Like, when it came to billing, I'm like, I'm not the guy to talk to. I'm the tech in the field. I have my role, and the lady
Talk
who's
to
in the
her.
office runs the books top to bottom, left to right, you name it. She's probably doing the quotes too, like handling all that. But like, and I'll say this, like, when I would call a contract customer or they're calling me about the numbers on a quote, I would say, hey, you need to call the office. You need to call a lady in the office. Like, she handles that. But they won't. They just keep wanting to siphon everything through me. And I'm just like, no. I'm like, please stop calling me. Like, I'm on a job. That's her job. I'm like, please just call her. Like, what the hell? And it's
People
so
do
weird.
it to me all the time. They'll
It's so
call me
weird that-
my phone and ask for the owner.
Yeah. It's just
Where
like,
is he? They say.
I don't get the big deal about, like, it's just business. Like, I'm literally telling you,
Weird.
make that phone call. And it's like, why is it so hard to make that phone call and talk to the lady about the finances of the project?
They're weird.
I don't get it. You know.
I always say it goes deeper. I don't think it's like the guys last night on the, if you guys didn't see this, my HVAC school article, my original one, the glass slippers and what was it? To glass slippers and or
Glass
no,
ceilings.
glass ceilings and those who lend us their hammers. Yes, yes, yes. I did write it. Anyway, so they
You may have
HVAC school
slept since then.
reshared that. And oh my Lord, did it cause a ruckus. I don't understand. I'll never understand. But there are hundreds of comments on there just bashing women, telling me to get back in the kitchen. I mean,
Really?
I can't even begin. I almost didn't come tonight
Holy shit.
because it's not that I was running scared or like I'm so used to this. It's not even funny. But I was just so overwhelmed with the negativity that I was like,
Really?
I don't want to bring. And I felt like it was me bringing it on because it was my article, you know. So I was like, I don't want to bring this onto the Grapevine show, and like this, I don't understand it. I never will. But it was terrible. And I mean, there was even worse comments than that. There were hundreds of them. And I will say, what I chose to take from it was all of my awesome guy HVAC friends going in there and being like, "Shut up, shut your mouth."
Oh yeah,
which is amazing. But it's just in the article. The article, if you've read it, is about thanking my male counterparts and thanking the guys who were at that panel and thanking the guys who were in the comments of our HVAC school podcast for just being there for us, for supporting us, for constantly like showing up to bat and like not ever just dropping out off of us and letting us handle it on our own.
So they didn't even read it.
They didn't read it, and they didn't watch the panel.
You know, it's a bunch of
jamokes.
That's why.
Right, and so this is what I'm saying. This is what brings me back to it. I've never once thought that they have a problem with us in HVAC. They just have a problem with us in general.
Or just like your average troll, you know, the guy that would comment and stuff just to bust chops anywhere. Yes. They're everywhere, you know. So just haters are gonna hate.
I think it stems deeper than that. I think there's a deep level of insecurity there.
Yes.
Personally, I think it's a situation where, you know, put yourself in this person's shoes for just a second. We are reaching a point where the trade, you know, like, man, we need people, and the people who got good jobs, they're making really good money, right? That's where we're at right now. So when that person has more competition, that could be scary. Right? What if that person was to swoop in and be more intelligent and troubleshoot way better, and then the owner's like, wait a minute, maybe I don't need that person anymore.
Yeah, right? I don't need none of that. That's right. So
maybe there's people out there who look at everybody as competition. You know what I'm saying? And I wonder if that's
they
where
seem to only open their mouths if you should be in the kitchen making them a sandwich.
Well, yeah. I have the answer to that. My pin actually says "Women belong in the kitchen," and it's crossed out, and it says "in the lab."
Yeah, I love it.
So, I actually saw a few of those comments thanks to Eric. I'm not on the social media to see them in a live interactive way, but I actually took some of them, and I just couldn't get it out of my head today on some of the thoughts and terminology that were being used in those comments, and it actually led me to learn some more things because Eric already knows, I went diving on the one that was in response to one of the supportive comments that was received about the panel discussion at the symposium in general, and it was calling out commie feminists.
Yeah, and so that was a fun one.
It gets better.
So
this dive got hilarious today.
Where are these comments?
On the HVAC school Facebook post of my article.
Okay.
About the symposium.
It's on the page, not on the group.
Oh my
Right,
goodness.
The page, not the group.
So I used it and going, okay, if this is the terminology that's being chosen to try to call out what is happening, what does that terminology really mean? Not necessarily what the poster was trying to intend or things like that, but what's the fundamentals, what's the historical context, and where did that come from, and does it have any actual resonation with what your article, Jen, or what our symposium talk or anything was actually speaking on? And if you dove at that terminology, the reality is that there was correlation from the standpoint of, if you look at some of the philosophical work behind Marxist feminism, then you have a space in which they were calling out that women's treatments in the patriarchal societies of the West was correlatable to having workers tied to wages in the way in their battle against capitalism. Well, if you drive that to what a lot of us had been sharing, it was we did not want to be singled out as being a woman versus a man. And we highlighted that the whole piece is that we're trying to navigate, kind of goes back to this lost in translation. We are trying to navigate a culture that was not designed with the woman in mind. And so there is actually some connectivity, but the positive part to me was, hey, I just learned all these things on these different philosophers and added things to
Marxism.
See, that bad comment was actually a good thing.
But that still goes back to the point that they did not read the article. They didn't watch the panel. That's what I got. The podcast.
Yeah.
And the worst part is, if they would have, they'd have saved their breath.
That means
known how foolish they look.
These jamokes making comments, you just got to take them at face level, because that's what they're doing. They're just, the
problem though for me, and the reason I almost didn't show up tonight, was because I am just so sick of it. It's so redundant at this point, and it's so gross, and it's just like my mind at this point. Like, I am so good at every single day getting these comments and just shoving them out the door, and then like all of my girls through HVACX or my friends who are in the field, they're all getting them too, and we're all talking about them and laughing it off and like whatever. But I am so, like, it made me realize last night that I am just so sick of it being every day that I could die. Like,
I'm shocked. I'm really shocked, and I mean, HVAC school, it reaches a lot of people, so it might be worldwide. It might be somewhere in where the place where women can't even go through a Starbucks drive-through. They're banned from driving
very
cars.
American.
They were very American.
These guys
all right,
so American.
it was a far reach, but I figured I'd give it a shot.
That's a good try, Mike.
Well, like Jennifer's comment about it not considering not showing up, because it gets exhausting, and you can tolerate it for so long, and then it just becomes overwhelming. And it ties back to like Eric's comment that it's like water slowly etching away, and that's just it. And I think that's part of why having this conversation becomes important, because we're trying to let others know that that's the silent added piece that we have. We're not saying that's different, and that just sometimes we need to be heard. Well, it's not asking.
and you're asking just to be treated equally, and that constant grinding and wearing is not really being treated equally,
and it's not productive.
It's not.
I'm not going to quit my job because you called me a commie. Like, I know you wish I would, but it's not going to happen. So it's so redundant. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm just so blessed. I have been absolutely blessed to the companies that I've worked with, that I have not had those negative experiences. So I can't talk about that. I mean, because I
love
haven't
every minute of that.
That's so cool, because you work with some good people.
Just don't write for them, Jess.
But the first, I mean, I've had some negative comments here and there, like HVAC Uncensored. I love Gil Cavey. He is the best, but I will not post anything on his group. I refuse, because I did one time. I posted.
Oh, those guys are wild over there, right?
Oh my gosh! I posted a picture of Craig and I together, and they just
my group is so bad too.
It was awful. I removed it. Like, I was in tears. It was so bad.
Really? I'm sorry to hear that.
It's not a monitored group. That's why. Like, Gil literally made this group and then dipped out because it overtook him and was too much.
Wow.
Oh, he doesn't even go to his own group. It's basically a separate entity at this point.
That's wild. Technically, it's uncensored, huh?
Yeah, it's literally uncensored.
That's funny.
My group HVAC for life too. Don't go there. It's terrible.
HVAC for life
I don't
is
even like it
crazy.
there.
So I have a question.
Horrible.
Do y'all feel any of that sentiment in the HVAC grapevine? And I'm saying, be honest. Or is there like, would you be, would you fully post in the group? Like, I'm trying to judge the group. Like,
None of us are scared to say it. I don't think.
Oh yeah,
Right.
they'll give it to you.
I don't feel that way. I don't. I offered, like when Eric and I were talking about this, I told him, I said, I don't want to bring this crap to your group. Like if you want to do it on mine instead, we're the misfits and like it's expected out of us if you don't want to do this there. And he's like, no, like, and it made sense. It just made sense. You guys, I don't feel that way at all in this space at all.
Yeah.
But I can only speak for me.
Yeah,
Well,
and those other groups are so crazy big. What do they got? Like 20,000 people in there, you know?
Yeah.
They're just
Nobody's
not
monitoring any knuckleheads in there, you know? So
No, for sure. And I know when a group gets really, really, really big, it's hard to monitor everything, until somebody
Yeah.
alarms you to look at it. That's why we keep
And
it
when you have
small.
that many humans in one place.
yeah, it's nice that our group is it's not out of control.
Yeah.
And it's technically based too, so I think that helps with it. Like these are just free for all groups. They're like if you're in
Yeah.
HVAC, you can come here and say whatever you want.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
group is so technical, and like I have probably learned more from the Grapevine group than I have like from many other places in the last couple of years.
Man, if
Oh,
if I had A Team's Adam Bell right now, where's it at?
Oh yeah. Is that what that's for?
I think
Yes,
so.
it's
I don't know.
supposed to
I
be
love
more.
it, man. I wish we had something like that. That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen.
I appreciate that. Try to
Thank you,
keep it that
guys.
way. I will say there's been a little bit of kind of like I really want to take the group back a step because there's been an influx of a lot of people coming in, and I want to like
Things are getting
reel-
sideways now.
Well, I'm not saying that. I just want to reel it back.
Jennifer went sideways on us.
What'd you do to Jen?
Like I just want to make sure
think she
that it
froze,
doesn't
too.
turn into a place that doesn't get like watered down. Like I get
Right.
that it can be a fun place, but like when there's too much posting that's trying to come through that's just jokes or memes, I'm probably gonna reel that back some and not allow it to fly. I hope that doesn't like offend people and make them want to like bail because I'm not approving everything, but I really wanted it to stay technical.
Yeah.
Wait,
Okay.
you know what I mean?
All right, boss. I'll pull it back a little bit.
Pull it back, Mike. Pull it back. Let's not have this talk again, okay?
Yeah. He's gonna pull my password off.
That's right. No, I just want to keep it up here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
That's how it
Absolutely.
started, and whenever it finishes, it's where I want it to be.
That's it.
So
We'll pass the mantle over to another group.
that's right.
When I
So-
start looking like Jay Leno or something. I'm hanging around for a while, so
Hey, when you have as many cars as Jay Leno does,
yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be shirts at this point?
Yeah. I'm shirted up.
he's going
Need
for
a
the same.
few more.
You're going for the same number of shirts as Jay Leno has cars.
Yeah.
So I guess I would ask the question, trying to think how I want to pose this question.
Well, while you're thinking about that, Jess, how'd you get into the trade? That's I missed your show that you did with somebody a while back.
My husband.
Oh yeah, okay.
So he was working for a company, and I wanted to work for that company. It was their 50th anniversary of business, and they had this semi-formal dinner, and we went, and the owner of the company said, when I'm done on earth and I talk to God, God's not going to ask me what I did with the money. He's going to ask me what I did with the people. And I'm like, I'm going to go work there. And 5 years later, I had the opportunity, and it was either they had an office job and a field job as a maintenance technician. I applied for both because I didn't care. I just wanted
Nice.
to work there.
Yeah.
I had spent the prior almost 2 years being an electric meter reader And it's not driving around pushing a button, it's walking, beating feet,
Yeah.
entering in numbers, 5 to 15 miles a day in Florida, and it was horrible.
How
So
many how many snakes are in those water boxes?
no, I was electric, not water.
Okay, okay. Every time I open up a water box, like, oh my god, I'm like, oh, here we go.
But since I was already acclimated to this lovely Florida weather, they threw me out in the field. And that's
Yeah.
how I ended up 5 years later still doing
That's
this.
that's awesome.
And so 5 years you've been in the field now?
Yes.
Nice.
Time flies, I'm telling you.
Crazy. I've been with Kalos now for over 3 years.
Dealing with Bert and all his antics.
I love him.
s-
He's like
Upside down, clearing drain lines.
he's my best friend at work.
Isn't he
totally
a
is.
trip?
Oh my gosh, when we get together, it's ridiculous.
It's so
Absolutely
nuts.
ridiculous.
I saw Testerman home remodeling,
Uh-huh.
and I get to I get to Kalos and I go, dude, what's going on? You got another business going lined up? Are you leaving? Tell him, spill the beans. He's like, no, that's my family.
Family.
I was like, all right, all right.
No, every time I see one of their vans, I'm always waving.
That's so
Cool.
funny.
It's one of the brothers.
That'd be awesome to have that last name. Tester, man. You'd have to hire him if he's for a technical job, you know? It's my last name.
I may butcher this, but I'm just going to try to ask it. And how would a woman want a man who's standing next to them in a situation? How would you want this to be handled? Like, if you see in a situation where a woman is not being treated fairly at work, would you want the man standing in next to the conversation to stand up and say something, or do you think that's going to make the situation worse? Or does that make sense? Am I making sense here? Like, do you want that bystander to stand up for you, or does that make the situation worse and you want to have the initiative to take on, like, who makes the first initiative situation there? Should the woman speak her mind and then the man back her up, who's as the bystander, or would you want the bystander to say something?
You want to take that, or do you want me to answer?
You can go
My
ahead.
thought. Okay, my first thought is it's going to be very situation dependent in that general framework that you laid out, Chris.
Mhm.
For me, it's going to be having kind of that eye contact piece with the ally. The male ally becomes critical because depending on exactly the situation of that, it it's that gut reaction of whether the woman speaks up or whether they need or want to have that male ally do that. The super critical that's kind of tied to that is when the woman is unable to speak up, whether she's walked away or isn't right there when it's said. And that to me is the super critical piece that the
Mm.
male allies need to step up and
Okay.
speak.
Now, yeah, I feel like we're breaking through a barrier here that's really interesting. You're saying that it's very important that if the conversation goes down and then the woman was to leave, if that male who was in the, conversation looks at the other male and says, "Man, you know what I mean?" That male really needs to say, "Hey, I think you're in the wrong there." Like, that's what needs to happen, is what you're saying.
That's the start to me of where we're building the next layer of the open dialogue that's going to take us on the route where we don't have to keep having these types of conversations then, because then it's, why would you treat any coworker that way?
Right.
Mhm.
Because
Right.
it's coming from that male ally. And so that puts us on our positive path journey to the end result that we would ideally like to be at. And just improving the industry from that standpoint and not having it be that gender or any degree of difference as the conversation starter. And so I
Yeah.
think that that is the crucial part in your example and query, Chris, is it's tied to that allyship.
Yeah.
And it's a very dynamic situation when there are two parties there because as an ally, you don't, it is a little balancing of don't over talk the the woman in a lot of instances, but sometimes depending on the woman and the situation, it can be very hard to find that voice because you are, like Jen had pointed out, you get worn down and sometimes there just isn't the words to come out. And we can be looking for that ally to have our backs, to have that hammer, as Jen has in her article, and to help push back in that situation because sometimes you just get too worn down to do it all yourself.
Yeah, I totally
Got it.
agree. Yeah. Yeah. There's times where I'm fully capable of, I have red hair. I can get mean. It's true. Um, but and like I said, since I haven't really dealt with this in the workplace, um, I think I would be in shock. But I mean, we know what's right and what's wrong and how to treat people. I mean, I, in
Yeah.
general, the world knows these things, whether they do it or not. It's on them. But I mean, if you see something that's not right, you should speak up. It doesn't matter who it is or where you're at. Be the bigger person. Stand up for someone.
Well,
Yeah.
and so I want to throw in something here too. For me, what I learned about myself is that there was a lot of things happening that I didn't even realize were potentially causing issues. Right? There was a lot of actions I was taking and others around me now that I can see it. That it's like, hey, that really probably is not the greatest thing to say or the greatest way to phrase something. And a lot of times it's, pull somebody to the side after the situation because they don't realize what's going on. And sometimes calling them out in the middle of a situation is not going to be the greatest way to help someone learn. And to me, like, that's what it's all about here, is learning about this and opening the knowledge farther.
Yeah, and pulling somebody to the side, like you said, that's how you do it.
Yeah,
You say, "Hey, I'm not perfect. I messed up," and that's how you grow, right?
well, I think I'm with Eric. I think in that situation, I think having that conversation with that individual, by themselves behind closed doors
Right.
is gonna lead toward education rather than that person putting their guard up, especially when there's other people around. They're
Yeah.
gonna want to be prideful and they're gonna be like, I'm in the right, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gonna lead to war. But
Yeah.
if you catch them after the fact, I think you can probably drive a wedge in that brain and say, "Hey, look, we should talk about that." And I
Yeah.
think, which is unfortunate, or hopefully that would lead toward like an apology, right? Like later on with the person they were in conversation with. But agreed, after the fact would be the time to have it. Yeah. It obviously would depend on what was being said in that conversation. So it's situational.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's not looking for confrontation. It's looking for education of all the parties because then we all have that opportunity to make the next step in our personal journeys for how we move forward and how we keep getting better on our own. That raises the group that's in that situation as well as the field in which we're working.
Yeah. Jess had my back. Nathan Orr was busting my chops, and Jess was like, "Hey, it's my buddy."
well, and I think we also have to, give each other permission to screw up once in a while.
Right?
Anytime we're learning something, we go back onto, on looking at a job, right? We screw things up,
Yeah.
How many of us as technicians here have let the smoke out of a circuit board on accident?
Yeah.
Raise your hand. Be honest. Right?
Or
Never.
change out the wrong condenser when the guy sold the unit.
Oh, man.
Sorry, Bobby.
I would love to have a show where we talk about things we did that was really wrong. I was just thinking about that the other day.
No,
Man, the list
no.
goes on and on and on.
We could just have Jen back on. and talk
That'd be
about
like
HVAC.
that'd be like a 3-hour show, and then we'd get to the next one of us.
That's how I learned, by doing the wrong thing. So I learned so much.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm so
we
smart.
learned
now.
the not right way to do it, and then you got to do it different the next time.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Man,
But
I don't
yeah,
know.
we're all human, so
Well, and I think that ties really well, Chris, to the scenario you laid out. It's just like those technical examples that you guys were talking about of letting the smoke out of the circuit board. If you have a conversation that doesn't go smoothly with someone else, then learn from it and
Yeah.
make the change. It's spot on to, it's not about having perfection in your interactions with any of your coworkers or
Right.
whether it be at a company or across an industry. It's take those interactions and make the next steps.
yeah. Because you can't put the smoke back in the circuit board, but you
The
can
magic was
repair. You can repair your relationship with your coworker by talking to them, pulling them on the side, and say, "Hey, we could
I mean,
we could talk this out."
All right.
We can throw
We're
some
at-
new resistors on that circuit board and kind of put the smoke back in a little bit, but you got to repair it, just like the relationship with a coworker.
Put the smoke back in.
All
I'm
right.
gonna make a I'm gonna make a shirt out of that.
We're at our 1 hour mark. So I'm
Oh, come
I know,
on!
man. I know.
What?
Final words.
Just getting
Jessica?
warmed up.
Jessica, lead us out.
Oh my gosh. Just treat people like people. Just don't be a jerk. Just
Love your neighbor.
that's right.